Today we are going to talk about learning from strangers, from otherness, through the lens of culture. Now, before we talk about it too much, I want you to think about a time when you've been either a guest at someone's house or when you were a host and a situation like this happened. So I was in Norway. I was with a colleague and we were staying in someone's house the night before we were going to be at a conference. And they had been with their family all day. They'd been taking us around town. It was great. And they had dinner for us. And so we got in and they said, you could smell that something had been sitting in a pot on the stove. And they said, well, tonight we have made some stew. And we're happy to share it with you, but we'd also okay with making something else if this is not sound good to you. And my colleague and I are like, oh, well, what is it? And they said, well, it's reindeer stew. No, I'd never heard of reindeer stew. I'd heard of other kinds of stews. But both my colleague and I said, hey, we're happy to join in with you. And they served us reindeer stew. And it was something I had never had before. Reindeer meat tasted different than other things that I had had. I was grateful for their hospitality and openness to serve us something else. I also felt like as a guest, I wanted to be sensitive and open to what they would do. So we both participated. Now, what is it like for you? Have you been that person, the guest, in someone else's house when maybe that's happened? Or have you been the person hosting and asking those kinds of questions? And I want you to think about what was going through your mind in that situation. For me, I really wanted to be a good guest. I wanted to learn from. I had been to Norway before, but I had never stayed with someone. I had never had this kind of a setting. And I wanted to learn from and with. And it means I was willing to try new things and risk things and make my own, hold my own judgments. So I just wonder what that's like for you. I want to read a definition of culture that comes from Smith, the reading that you had, but it comes from an earlier chapter. And it says this: culture refers to the patterns of being, doing, and thinking that human communities share and to which they assign meaning. Now, culture is a human construct, which means it's a mix of good aspects that help us make meaning in community, but it can also be self-centered. It can be power. You have power for some and not for others. And so we're always using culture to kind of not only seize what's meaningful for a community, but also where's the sin, where's the things that are getting in the way of all people living abundantly that need to be critiqued or reformed or rethought about. Specifically, we want to use the lens of culture to think about how we love God and our neighbor, how we do it individually, personally, how we do it as a community, and what that means for us as Christian public leaders. So I'm going to highlight a couple things from the reading that you had for this week. I'm going to first talk about 4 ways of learning and thinking about culture. I'm going to talk about ignorance, and then we're going to talk about theologically, kind of how do we bring that in. In this reading, we talk about there are 4 kinds of learning. I just want to highlight them really quickly. The first is thinking about everyday encounters. As we encounter someone on the street, as we encounter someone when we're at Luther Seminary, if we encounter someone in our own context, ministry context, there's some everyday references or kind of ways of thinking that are operational. And if someone is foreign or new to that culture, and that culture can be Midwestern, it can be ethnic, it can be socioeconomic. There are all kinds of things that inform that. But that is almost this invisible sense of culture. But to learn to navigate well those everyday encounters, you need to know what those are, right? And you bump up against them when you don't see them. For example, maybe you move to the Midwest and you find out that this is either Packer or Viking fan. There's different sports teams that are part of what is important to the people around there. Second awareness is what are the hidden rules, or for example, I think of like in the East Coast where it's really okay to say you don't like someone and you get in their face and you tell them your opinion. Where in the Midwest, it might be more passive aggressive where you say you like something, but you really don't. And then people talk behind each other's back. Different regions, different cultures, different ethnic expressions, all kinds of things are going. What are the hidden rules that govern the way that we talk and are with each other? Third level is what are the skills, intercultural skills for communicating across different cultures. This includes language, right? Learning different languages, but also the nuances of those languages. It's more than just language as you talk across cultures. These are often seen as you go to another country or go into a place where you're not the normative culture, you're a minority culture. So intercultural skills. And the fourth is self-awareness, the ability that not only to, as in when we're in an intercultural situation, to have our own biases or our own assumptions kind of challenged or go, oh, I didn't even know that, but also to be challenged to say, is this the only way? Is this the right way? And the ability to kind of look at our own way of being through the lens of somebody else. So the first is, and again, these are outlined in your reading. The first is everyday encounters. The second is awareness of the hidden rules. The third is skills for communicating across culture. And the fourth is self-awareness. Now, the next place that they go to is sometimes it's really good to be ignorant in the sense of to be curious, to wonder. It's not helpful to go into other cultures, which, as you know, to pretend that you know. And so to go in and ask questions and to ask them respectfully is a really important thing. The other thing is when you observe behaviors to say, hey, is this a normative behavior or is this an outlier behavior? So the ability to kind of look across and say, learning how to read a culture and holding it open for a period of time and not making judgments too quickly on what you see and from a few encounters that you have of transferring them across. I love this this quote on the page 113. Cultural identities and our own cultural identities and experiences function as backdrop books that condition how we interpret the world around us. So as we encounter other cultures, those backdrop books get challenged or get exposed, and we get a chance to reflect on what they are. 3 ideas that I want to highlight here that they talk about how we might approach this, especially as we think about Christian discipleship. 3 H's: humility, hospitality, and hearing. Let me just say a quick word on each of those. What does it mean to come to another humbly in front of someone and to be vulnerable with them and to say, I don't know what it's like to be you, to be in that situation, but I'm here with you. Now, this clearly is a pastoral kind of thing. I don't know what a death is or something that you've experienced and to come to that. But what does that humility mean around cultures? I think because culture is so socialized into who we are, we can often jump right over it. And as we become more and more engaging across different cultures, it becomes more and more important for us to do that. Now, some of us have always had to navigate cultures. For various reasons, we have found ourselves not in a majority or normative kind of culture where we are. And so have learned that skill. Some of us have primarily been in places where we haven't had to do a lot of work in that. So that humility and creating space for the other is important. But hospitality is also important. Thinking about if our call is to love God and our neighbor, what does that mean? What does it mean to authentically and respectfully love our neighbor in this setting? The scenario that I talked about food, often as we sit around table, as we sit in those everyday parts of life with people across different cultures, what does it mean to be guest? What does it mean to be host? And what does it mean to enter into those spaces gracious and with good questions about wanting to truly understand and keep it open to say, I don't know that I can ever relate to what that's like, but can you tell me more? And then the last one takes that just a bit further, and it's listening and hearing. So often in our fast-paced culture, we listen really quickly and then think we got it, and we jump to conclusions and we move on. In intercultural exchanges, hearing for understanding, hearing to deeply put ourselves into someone else's shoes, into their situation, means a deeper attention and deeper space, more space into hearing each other. And as we do that, we open ourselves to actually grow in our becoming journey of being formed as a person of faith. There's a great quote by Bursavolf that I want to read to you in this article. It comes from his book, Bursavolf's Exclusion and Embrace, which is a wonderful book that I would give to you. But I want you to think about that humility, hospitality, and hearing and our Christian journey in light of this quote. In an embrace, I open my arms to create space in myself for the other. Open arms are a signal that I do not want to be by myself only. It is an invitation for the other to come in and to feel at home with me. In an embrace, I also close my arms around the other. Closed arms are a sign that I want the other to become a part of me, while at the same time maintaining my own identity. By becoming part of me, the other enriches me. In this mutual exchange, none remains the same because each enriches the other, yet both remain true to their genuine selves. For me, that is a wonderful way to talk about the move from learning across difference. So from learning about you to learning from you to learning with you in a collaborative kind of mutuality kind of thing. As people of faith, the cross invites us to this work. God joins us by giving God's life so that we may have it abundantly. And God invites us to, in our encounters with others, to die to ourselves, to put aside the things that are focused just on us and open ourselves to the other, not only to learn and to journey with and to accompany, but so that all of life, all of creation, all people may live abundantly in God's world. That's what I got for you today. I look forward to your conversations and hearing how this challenges you to think about your own leadership.